What's good? What's good? What's good? Welcome to Mixed Reviews with your host, Rock and
Lita,
two cousins reflecting on media through the lenses of
the many cultures that shape us, so multiculturalism,
the understanding that we are so much more than the sum of our individual identities, intersectionality,
and the topics that we should all talk about, but we don't because of the cultural lenses and a range of identities that we juggle every day. Mental health.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So what this show is, it can be all over the place.
Yeah.
It can, I don't know, this week it's gonna be it's just gonna touch your soul,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's coming from the heart. It's sharing, it's venting, it's fellowshipping. We doing
Indeed.
it.
Indeed. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. So with that, what this show is not.
It's not your average review show. So we're not going to just be like, this is what this is and this is what somebody else thought. What we're going to do is that we're going to do it from our own experiences and take it from there.
Yep. So with that, welcome to the reunion. Welcome to the reunion part only works when we remind people that like we're cousins.
I feel like it works anyway.
You think so?
Yeah, because I feel like, friends, family. Listen, so I got some friends that will always be family.
Indeed. That's real. That's real. And this week, we seemed real excited. We were talking about how groovy it was. What is our theme going to be for this week? I feel like you're really excited to share. Not our theme, our topic.
So our topic is outcast. Being an outcast. And so that's sort of like the topic. What we're going to talk about, or the media we're going to talk about, just warms my heart. Dirty Computer.
Okay, stop right there. Stop right there. All right, y'all now know we've given y'all a taste of what's to come, but we don't want to. We just gonna leave you with that. We're gonna leave you wanting a little bit more because before we talk about that, what you got? What got you through?
Well, see, I'm gonna mess it up though, because.
I saw you. I felt you. You were getting all excited. You was about to.
I was
about to go in immediately. I just wanted them to know because we've been doing this show for a little while now, and I realize we usually don't tell them what we getting into till later. I want them to know so they hold on.
But see, this is a little bit of a problem. I got a little bit of a problem. So part of what got me through this week
is the CD.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think, I'm trying to like choose my words without saying too much. I think I will speak more to the power of music, to the power of art.
Okay.
And that, if you find a good work of art, if you find, a body of music that speaks to your soul in a language that you need at that moment, nothing like it. Nothing like it. And I feel, I loved it anyway, but I listened to Dirty Computer over and over and over and over and over and over again for this show. And I needed it. That's where I was this week. So yes, that's what brought me my peace this week.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. So this CD was definitely life, but it is not what got me through.
Okay.
What got me through is a couple things. One, I will say, I went to a couple happy hours last week, and it was cool. Like I met like two new people, and I spoke to them for more than 2 minutes. I know, right? And he really gave me life. But what took away some of that life is at one of these bars I went to, it was like a personal pizza was $20. I was like, what?
What kind of bar were you hanging out at?
A DC bar.
Oh, so yeah.
In a gentrified area. Now, granted, it was effing delicious.
So you bought you a $20 pizza?
I was gonna eat it. And then, because I'm a good man, good husband, I brought half home. But I gotta admit, those was the most expensive 3 slices of thin crust pizza I've ever had. But it was
better
good.
have enjoyed it. Yeah.
It was good as hell, but it hurt my heart. But what really got me through was kind of adjusting my meds. So, like, again, I don't know if y'all out there, if you've ever been considering meds, and I'm sure you've heard the pros and cons. And a lot of times the people are like, "Oh, they just don't work." But if you're gonna be on meds, you gotta actually kind of like figure out like what's the right dosage and yada yada. So
what's the right med? What's the right dosage?
Right.
And that changes. That's the hard part. Yeah.
And yeah, that's true. Like, when I work out, it could be a little bit different, all that. If I lose weight, it could be a little bit different, all of that. So as of now, I found the right amount of milligrams. And like, I had actually stopped taking my meds. I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago because I actually was a little afraid because I was having like the inability to grasp certain words, and it was scaring the shit out of me. It really was. And so I ended up talking to my doctor about it. And it's funny, I first chose to get off the meds before talking to my doctor because I was just like, fear and, all this stuff about meds that I know we grew up with our family. But I talked to my doctor about it, and they kind of chuckled a little bit. They were just kind of like, yeah, it's a thing. And it turns out that my dosage, one, was too high, and two, I take an ADHD med. If you take it too late or too much, it disturbs your sleep pattern. So even if you're getting a full night's sleep, you're not getting rest. It's like if you drink alcohol, how you're not getting a good night's sleep. So it was a side effect of not getting proper rest, and yada yada. So I adjusted my meds significantly back, and so far so good. Like I have my words. I'm not afraid that I'm going to be wandering around the street,
right?
wondering where my house is. I was scared. I ain't even gonna lie. I was scared. Not even scared. Scared.
It is scary, but I think an important piece, and I'll throw out to our audiences because the work that I do, I cannot prescribe medicine, but I certainly work with a lot of clients who take medications. And I think a key thing that you did that I want to put out to everybody is talk to your clinician. Right. I think a lot of times people make the decisions one way or another without saying anything. And a lot of medications have side effects. So just as much as that side effect was scary to you, just stopping, depending on the med, might be even more frightening.
Right.
So yeah, being okay with having or reaching out or having those conversations is huge.
Yeah, I gotta admit, and I hope I was clear about that. That wasn't the right thing to do, to first just stop, but I was scared.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. And you had the conversation. It doesn't, I don't know how much time passed. It doesn't sound like you just, stopped and that was it. You did have the conversations and you figured out the right balance. But yeah, I think people being comfortable having that conversation with your clinician, they know there are side effects. You were likely not the first person to experience it. So yeah, I think that was good that you followed up.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what got me through, man. It's been a good med week.
Hey, listen.
I was like, all right, no fogginess. I mean, get that executive function going. It's cool. So, nice. So yeah. So with that, I think we're excited to jump into this. So, I'll say, last week was our last week talking about the Chi.
Yeah.
Go check it out. We focused on the topic of death. I know, makes you want to go jump and check it out, but
it's like that does not make people want to listen. It's good.
It's good.
The Chi is good. We are good. Listen.
It's worth checking out, man. It's not just tooting our own horn, but we got some good feedback. But this week we said, like we say, we check. We're gonna be doing different forms of media. So this time we're switching it up, and we're actually gonna do an album. And the album that we chose is Dirty Computer, Janelle Monáe.
Yeah.
And the theme, we always have a theme is going to be outcast, and what our own experiences as we think about the concept of being an outcast and how it interacts with this album. But before we go into our peace, pain, and pleasure breakdown, you want to say a little bit about the album, Cuz?
I think it's interesting. It was interesting for me because although I know Janelle Monáe, I love Janelle Monáe, like this album in particular was one that like I feel like I certainly listened to more than any of her other albums. Mm-hmm. And it's not a knock on any of them. It's just that I think different things come to you at different points in your life. And for me, this one spoke to me right now and is kind of what I needed at this point in my life. And so, I think a lot of what and I think, when you listen to her music, like she's always talked about, she's always had that flavor of like being her own person and embracing that and not just sort of like fitting in or striving to fit in and be like everybody else. But this album, I think, took a different kind of tone. Mm-hmm. And then you can talk, I'm sure you'll talk in a minute about sort of like your interpretation of the title. And then I had shared a little, we talked earlier about sort of like what the definition I read online. But the other thing that was interesting about this is that for a very long time, people made speculations about her sexual orientation or things like that. And I don't remember if it was before the album came out or close to the time that the album came out, she came out as being pansexual. So, it was like, I think for me, not, basically really coming out in my 40s, that was incredibly powerful to have this, this person, this woman of color out there saying like unapologetically, this is who I am. And then having this entire album that like tapped into so many things, because it's not just about sexual orientation. As you listen to the album, it touches on so many things, from whether it's race, whether it's socioeconomic status, like so many pieces.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely on the intersection piece, and I think it does it really well. Like if you're really listening to the words, because I mean, and there may be a couple songs you're like, wait, what up, but I think it's not nearly as cryptic as some albums. Like this, I think this album is to help people through the journey, and I think she's crystal clear about that.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and I shared, as we were kind of prepping for this show, that I found a website that like shows you the lyrics. And it was even interesting for me because so many of these songs are like, I love it. I understood enough of it that I was like singing along and loving it. And it was so powerful for me. And then seeing the words and thinking that like realizing that it was even more powerful than I imagined.
Yeah. I went to the website and then I was like, but then I decided not to, because I was like, I don't want their interpretation to mess with my interpretation. Right. But there was a couple of them where I was just like, yeah, I don't know what the hell. And I went back and I was like, I need no help. But
I was glad I waited, because at one point I kind of laughed and I was like, it would have been nice to know for the last however many months what she was actually saying right there. But there was a part of me, like you said, that like I'm glad I did it today. Like I'm glad I did it for the show. Yeah. But it was nice to have that experience and then come together to have this, to have this dialogue. I'm happy about that.
For sure. So I think that's actually a great transition. So the way we do our reviews is we talk about three aspects of the piece of media, piece of art, and we have these three terms: is peace, pain, and pleasure. Not always in that order. Peace is kind of like, what are the technical aspects of the piece of art, where pain is like, what are the triggers that we've experienced in our own lives, and how we navigate that and how we resonate with that. And then finally, pleasure is just what did we love? What were the parts that made us shout? What was the parts that made us smile? And I'll say there's a whole lot of that for this album. Usually. Pain is our longest one. I think Pleasure might be our longest one this time. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you are correct.
yeah. So let's we usually like to start with Peace because it's like let's get the technical stuff out the way. So
right.
the album itself, the music, the composition, the order of the songs, the quality of the production. What can you throw out there when you think about Peace?
I mean, it just fit. You know what I mean? It fit, it flowed. I feel like, I mentioned earlier that like just feeling that she, so much of it was just unapologetic.
Yeah.
And I feel like I felt that throughout the album. I love too that like when the description that I did end up reading about like the album talked about the fact that like we're always I think it was on genius.com, like we're always uploading and downloading and transmitting and sharing information. And we're taught that the things that make us different are seen as being like bugs or viruses. So whether that's being queer, whether that's being a woman, whether that's being poor, like whatever those things are. And it's sort of like embracing the idea that no, that's not the case. And being able to embrace that even if other people aren't comfortable with it. And I think throughout the album, it didn't feel like for me at least, and I also recognize it, it holds a special place in my heart, but it didn't feel like I was getting smacked in the face with it. It didn't feel like, it just didn't feel like that. It just felt like it flowed, and it felt more like, come here, sit down next to me. Let me tell you this story. Let me tell you my story. And if it happens to resonate with you and help you along on your journey, then great.
That term you use, story, like for me, it really reminded me of like the old hip hop story albums. Not so much where it's like literally like this person said this with the interludes, but like the content to me was so fluid. Like it was almost like one long spoken word piece. You know what I mean? Like it's for me, it was a real consistent, like, no, this is what this album is about. Right. This album is it's not just my story, it's y'all's story. Like I remember, one of the notes I wrote was, when I first started listening to it, I was like, okay, this is a CD about empowering women. And, and then I actually had a moment, I call it my Lemonade moment, where like when I was listening to the Lemonade album and, I kind of had the same thought like, oh yeah, this, Beyonce, do it for the ladies. And I was like, wait, hold on. No, this is for everyone.
Wait a minute.
If you actually, you know what? This is for me too.
Yeah.
And I had the same experience with this album. Like in the beginning, it was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And then it was like, wait, no, I'm a dirty computer.
We all are. Really? Yeah.
And so for me, kind of the composition I thought was just, in some ways really genius. It was it was just really groovy. It was the word that kind of comes to mind for me. It was, you're listening to it, you're like, yeah, kind of rocking. Like, there were a couple of tracks that, could hit hard. Like, when I think about my love for Janelle Monáe, I think about, could you feel it? Tightrope. Tightrope was my joint. I mean, with Left Foot, even the video, I was like, oh, I am on Janelle Monáe. This wasn't Tightrope. This was more, it was like, I mean, the opening track, Dirty Computer, it sets the tone. One thing I was mentioning before the show, I was saying, I don't actually think the title track is the beginning of the album. Like I would say like Crazy Classic Life for me was, because like listening to the lyrics in Crazy Classic Life are in a lot of ways reflected in the last track, Americans. So I felt like those were like the bookends, whereas like, Dirty Computer was like the book cover,
I might be able to see that. Yeah, I think initially when you shared that idea, I kind of felt like, no, I feel like Dirty Computer, I almost felt like, no, Dirty Computer was right where it was supposed to be. But I think both of our points can be true. You know what I mean? Like when she's talking, I feel like Dirty Computer does let us know, like she's saying to you, I'm coming from this place. I could see it being a book cover. I'm coming from this place and then jumping into Crazy Classic Life. And it's like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, there's a difference. There's a slight difference with, because like, Dirty Computer, you got just kind of just this groove going, and then Crazy Classic Life. I mean, she jumps in there, the music hits you, and then at the end with her, with her free, it feels like a freestyle. But, it's probably not. But I mean, it got that kind of energy to it. It's like, yo, we're doing this.
Right. But yeah, Dirty Computer, she's like, walk in line. If you look closer, you'll recognize that I'm not that special. I'm broke inside.
Yeah.
Crashing slowly, the bugs aren't me. And I think that sort of taps into what you were sharing of like from the very beginning, pointing out that like this is us. This is everybody. It's in all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I say if there was anything else I would add about peace, now, I'm going to save that for pleasure. It made me too happy. I'm going to say that for pleasure. All right. So this is probably the quickest we've ever gotten to pain. So
let's do it.
So now being that you've kind of lived this experience, at least a part of it, I mean, I can assume, there's just a different perspective on pain. That you may have. I don't know. It's an assumption. Is that true?
I mean, I'm sure. I imagine it'll be different for everyone, kind of thing. But yeah, I'm sure as we go through, there are going to be different pieces that pop out for each of us. And for me, like, and it was interesting. It was actually kind of hard for me to highlight the sections that I would put under pain.
Me too.
And that might have been part of the beauty of the album, is that I felt like even when it hit something, even when, I kind of felt that like switch back to like, that those broken pieces or those painful memories, there was something in the lyrics right after that brought me healing. Yeah. Or that reminded me of the healing. So yeah. I think it was an interesting experience. It's been an interesting experience.
I know the Don't Judge Me track. There was a part, let me see, it said, even though you tell me you love me, I'm afraid that you know what? That was a pain point, but that's not the one I want to start with. I want to start with I think it was Crazy Classic Life, actually. It was coming towards the end where she just kind of calls out, like she had friends. And again, our theme is Outkast, right? So I'm listening with an ear of, like, how have I been othered? For me, being an outcast resonates with that. And like, having these friends, essentially like not seeing color, but saying that she made, they made the same mistakes, basically they want to lock her up, but they want to put them on, and that right there is heartbreaking. Like if you've ever lived that experience, if you're a person of color, and I do a lot of work with diversity, and one thing that I've realized, especially with millennials, like even older millennials, like 35, whatever, like a lot of them didn't believe in racism, to like the extent of, how harmful it was, but until they graduated college and then they realized that their white counterparts who, is sometimes not even as smart, are making, making more than double what they making. And it's like, wonder why that is.
Right.
And it's like, could it be? And it's like, once that door is open and you start looking, through those lenses, you're like, oh, wow, these disparities are fucking real, So that part, really, it kind of took me to a sad place. And I was just like, damn, and then the other piece that caught me for pain was, like I said, in the track Don't Judge Me, which she said, even though you tell me you love me, I'm afraid that you just love my disguise.
Mm-hmm.
Tease my fears and light your candle to my raging fire of broken desire. Now, you know, I used to perform a lot. And it's funny because one of the stories that I tell about, like, how I chose, to be with my wife, Mrs. Rock, as she used to be called, she was one of the, like, she fell in love with me. Like
Right.
most women that I had dated for years, I had met like after a show, seeing me perform.
Right.
She had
And it was that.
never saw me perform, and she just liked rock. She just like plain old, dirty draws rock. And I was just kind of like, wow, like I need to check this out, So I mean, it worked out good, but I know what it's like.
Right. Yeah. 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 I think that particular line struck me. I think also because I feel like in so many ways, all of us or most of us are walking around, wearing a disguise. And it is always that fear that if you really knew about the different parts of my identity, if you really knew about all my insecurities or my anxiety or my whatever other mental health issues, would you still love me, kind of thing. And that's scary. That's incredibly scary. So yeah, I think I can certainly, that was not necessarily one that it's one that I highlighted. I didn't necessarily highlight it as a pain, but I can certainly see that. Like, I feel like it resonates. And it's also interesting, the one that, you talked about her pointing out that, like, the whole, the piece about realizing in Crazy Classic Life that when you get that realization, she's like, all I wanted was to break the rules like you. We both running naked at the luau and realize it. And I think it was interesting, my son, when he was in high school, I remember having a conversation with him and a friend of mine at the time, and him, he's grown up in the suburbs, a diverse school, and he's down with the, like, it doesn't really exist. And it wasn't very long after he went to college that changed. And I imagine that, however many years later, if we spoke to him about it now, he would just probably laugh, like, that he ever believed that. And I'm sure that there was some harsh realities that he's probably never shared with me that helped him to come to that realization. So yeah. It's the album on multiple occasions put some stuff in your face.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I mean, I guess it's part of the dirt. It's part of the, of the virus, really. I mean, the last track is Americans, and I'm gonna save it for when we talk about Pleasure, but the opposite of the point that I'm gonna make is, like, if we're all supposed to be Americans, why aren't we, why aren't we allowed to all have the same experience?
Right.
And I'll kind of leave that there for Pain.
Okay.
But
I think that there were a few pieces for me that resonated when it came to Pain. So one I mentioned already, and it was sort of like that early part of Dirty Computer, when she's like, I'm broke inside. I'm not that special, I'm broke inside. And I think so there is some pain in that. I think that's a hard realization, because I think we're so often, I will speak for myself. I feel like I've so often been conditioned to don't talk about the pain, don't talk about the hard times. Just, if you're speaking, out in public spaces, whether that's virtual or in real life, you don't talk about the struggles. You don't acknowledge being broken, for so many reasons. And so to say those words, that I'm broke inside, is like, I am. We all are. And I believe though that there's power in acknowledging it, but that doesn't make it easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it easy. So I think that was one of my moments of like, out, okay, that I felt something. I felt something there. One of my favorite songs, which I think is going to come up again. I know it's going to come up again when we talk about Pleasure, but is I Like That. I love that song.
Yeah, that's my favorite too.
Love that song. So I think it was like the third verse when she's talking about her experience in the class. And basically some kid is teasing her because she cut her perm off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's like, you rated me a 6. And I was like, damn. Mm-hmm. And that, I wasn't, listen, we are cousins. We have been very open about that. We didn't have the parents that were like, I'm gonna buy you the flyest gear. No. And I'm gonna do whatever. Like, no. Like, no. I had to fight for whatever I got. I had, and when it came to here, and I mean, look, we could have a whole show about Black folks in hair. But yeah, it was so difficult. It was so complicated. It was so messy. But I remember, being the outcast in whatever space I'm in for whatever reason, and all the different messages you're getting out there and then you're getting at home. And I remember being teased. I remember the pain of that. And one of the, towards the end of that verse, when she, after she's like, I was like, damn, she's like, but even back then with the tears in my eyes, I always knew I was the shit.
Yeah.
And I've had mixed feelings over time about that because I didn't always know I was the shit. I didn't always consciously know. So those tears for a very long time stuck. You know what I mean? The pain of those tears stuck for a very long time. Now as an adult, I can look back and I can see the strength in that little girl. And I can see that there was if that little girl didn't believe that there was more to life, that there was some possibility of it, I wouldn't be here right now.
No, that's
for
right.
a variety of reasons. So she must have believed.
Right.
She must have believed, but I wasn't conscious. I wasn't aware of it.
Well, I think, I can't speak for your experience, but I know it's similar. I mean, cousins. And I think what happens is you go through these cycles, and it's like to survive, you have to be like, all right, I'm the shit, right? And that gets you through for a period. And then you actually get new tools. And then you almost forget, like you're functioning in this new world. And then you have to be reminded of that, 6th grade person. And it's like, oh yeah, how did I make it? I remembered I was the shit, and because as an adult, you're like, oh, well, that's different. I was just a kid. And it was like, well, the only difference is that I fucking believed in myself. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's so again, about this whole hair thing. It wasn't just the ladies. Like, growing up, my parents did not believe in getting a shape up. Now, for any Black men that's listening to this, you understand that, getting at least a shape up on Mondays, if not the full haircut, is part of the rites of passage of being a Black man. They ain't believe in that. They was like, there ain't no way in hell I'm spending money for you to cut 20 hairs off your head. So I had the McDonald's arch. Like, that was my hairline. Man, right. Listen, I got it, man. Yo, when you want to talk about brutal, these kids is rough.
Yeah. I think it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. It doesn't, it comes in so many shapes and sizes. Like, you're totally right. I think it comes in so many shapes. And it's hard because we're going to you're going to see it and feel it from your perspective. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a hit, and it's a constant conversation.
So what I had to do, what I decided to do was I got locks. Because it was like, and it's funny because I had locks before, Wayne, and it became mainstream. Like, I had locks when everybody was like, oh, he must be Rastafarian. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
and it helped. Like it made me mysterious. You know what I'm saying? I was like, yo, I just didn't want to get laughed at.
Like, little do y'all know.
Little do y'all
Little
know.
do you know? I think
You
the
know.
hard thing for me though is that too, like you talked a little while ago about that, you feel like you get pulled back to forgetting that you're the shit.
Right.
And I think the hard part for me as an individual, I think I see it in friends and other women of color as well, though, is that there's something in society that people get real uncomfortable when women of color move into a space believing that they're the shit. And I think that has been another struggle for me, and why this kind of like really resonated with me is that people feel like, oh, like you think you're the shit. How am I going to break you
How
down?
am I gonna knock you down a peg for
You know
real?
what I mean? So like for real, like why he ain't have to rate that girl a 6? Like she ain't bothering him. She trying to pay attention to her class, you know? Um, and I've gone through that cycle through life where yeah, you build yourself back up and you believe that, whether it's dating, whether it's just professionally, whatever it is, you move into these spaces. And it's an interesting thing though, because people are attracted to it though. They like it. They like that power and that presence that you bring into a room.
Yeah.
And then they sit next to it. And then for whatever reason, their own insecurities often get triggered and they're kind of like, oh, well, this means that I'm less because you are who you are. So now I got to bring you down so I can feel better. And you start that cycle all over again. I think the nice thing is that if you keep the right people around you and if you keep your head in the right place, that those cycles get shorter. Right. I feel like I dip down much less and I can feel like, I am the shit much. I might have a rough day. But it's like, no, I'm holding on to this.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we can go into that. You the shit.
Thank you. You too. Shit.
Well, thank you. I take it. I'll roll with it.
So yeah, I think those. And then I think the last one, was So Afraid. And just sort of the chorus is so afraid. Like I'm afraid, I'm so afraid. And what if I lose?
Yeah.
And it was like that question every time she says that feels like yes. Like you can live your life and get stuck right there. Mm-hmm. Like what if I lose? Mm-hmm. Is what I think of myself. I'm fine in my shell. I'm afraid of it all. Afraid of loving you. But it's just the idea of like, I'm so scared of everything. I'm so scared of the possibility that I might lose. When I think about this album and all that it is represented for me is the fear of, from academics, from what if I am not successful in graduate school, to love, what if my partner and I don't make it and I've opened my heart to this person, to, coming out, or coming in, depending on how you define it. But, I was safe in that shell. I was safe kind of living the life that and faking and being the person that people wanted me to be. And, you come out of that shell, it's scary. There's a lot to lose. I could lose family. I could lose friends. It's scary as hell. So afraid.
I don't know if this is exactly what it was, but when I was listening to it, I was like, I think this is a coming out song. And not just, again, not just coming out sexually, but period. Mm-hmm. Like, all right, your true self, in a world that is really content on you not taking chances. Cause it was like, all right. Cause I think if I remember, this is the one where it's like, if I kissed you down there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, oh yeah, so this is a coming out song. But then I was like, again, just like with the whole Lemonade thing, I was like, all right, but what's this grander metaphor here? Right.
And there's something in there for I think anyone who'll listen.
Yeah. Especially if you want it,
Right.
So okay, all right. I think
so. Yeah.
All right. I think we dug deep. We did.
There.
But I think it's now time to to celebrate.
Yeah.
It's time to party a little bit.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I can't contain it.
So, what do you think about running through the tracks real quick?
Sure.
All
I
right.
feel like I got something for everything, but some more than others. But yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, Dirty Computer, what's on your mind?
I think, I touched on it a little bit. So the pleasure of that is it felt like it's okay to be broken. You know what I mean? Like it's okay to admit. And I feel like I'm careful about referring to the bugs and the viruses because it's I don't know, like she says, like I don't know that those are all bad. But I think that there's something in that of like it's interesting when you're dealing with other people. Sometimes if I'm embracing my queerness, my Latinx, my, all of those pieces, then other people get uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes people very uncomfortable for so many reasons. Like people will straight be like, why you bringing that up? Why we got to talk about that?
Right.
And I think part of the pleasure in that song for me was that like you said, it was the book cover. It was kind of when you look at that book cover and you're like, you feel like, oh, it's okay. We gonna talk about this? Okay, let's do it. And I feel like for me, that's what that song was.
Cool. I agree. We'll roll to the next one. Crazy Classic Life. I'll say for me, it jumped right on in. You know, the line where she said, "We are royalty, not a nightmare, but rather the American dream. Want to be like you, Black Waldo." All of that. It was just like, yo, this is me. Some of y'all ain't believe in me. Whatever. Guess what? I'm doing my shit, and y'all out here, y'all can do y'all shit too. Crazy.
Right. I don't need a lot of cash. I just want to break the rules.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved, just her saying like, I want a crazy classic life. And I really love the line when she's like, so if the world would end tonight, I had a crazy classic life. And I think back, we talked earlier about the earlier versions of ourselves. And there was a time when, for whatever reasons, whether it was growing up in a neighborhood I grew up in or, the mental health pieces or whatever it was, I didn't necessarily think that I would die. Like I didn't, but I didn't see myself having a future, if that makes sense.
No, I get it.
And so I stayed in that place for so long. And then, I moved and, it wasn't easy by any stretch, but, I ended up going to graduate school multiple times and I'm doing this work that I love. And when the anxiety isn't getting me, when the depression isn't getting me, I have these moments where I think to myself, this is all just gravy.
Yeah, compared.
You know what I mean? Like I can't, this is way more than I ever imagined. So if the world ended tonight, I don't have any complaints. And I think that was a pleasure piece in that for me of like, yeah, there's still work I want to do. If I'm not asking for the world to end. I'm not going anywhere. But if it did, I've lived a crazy classic life. You know what I mean? I've done things often my way and I look forward to doing it my way some more. So
it's funny that you say that. So like, I don't know if I look at it a different way, but I definitely when I used to work with teens, one line that I would bring up was from 50 Cent, and he would be like, "Damn, homie, back in high school you was the man, homie." And I used to be like, "Yo, you can't make just this your legacy." Like high school, yeah, you might have had a little bit of shine, but you got potentially 90% of your life to live afterwards, right. So in some ways, I'm completely with you, but then on the other side, I'm like, all right, let that be a springboard. Like you cannot be Al Bundy, reminiscing on your college football years. I just aged myself real quick.
Well, no, I think we're saying, I don't know. I feel like we're saying the same thing though. Like we're saying that it didn't end there. It doesn't end there. Like, for me, like you said, you were working with adolescents. Thank God I didn't believe that it ended there and that whatever I had completed at that point was over. And I kept moving forward. Yeah. And I'm not done yet. Like I said, I ain't going nowhere, but I'm very appreciative of where I've gotten, or where I am now.
Right. For sure. All right. So yeah. I don't know if we need to go through each track, but do you have anything for Take a Bite?
I loved it. I don't think there was anything, especially with that one. The only thing I had lighted, she's like, maybe it's lust, maybe it's love, maybe it never ends. Playing my hair and nibble there on my mocha skin. So I think with that one, it was a lot of like her, and it felt like, oh, we talking about it. Like that felt like a coming out to me. It felt like, oh, I mean, you ain't misunderstand that.
Right. That's true. Maybe I was just like, oh, not my song. I mean,
listen, I heard it.
I'm in.
Like, I ain't judging you.
So the next one for me though was like, okay, so Screwed, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what I loved about Screwed, I mean, there's so much to love about it, but what I really latched on to was Power is Sex. And so I'll say a little bit about my business. So, I dabble a little bit in BDSM.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the concepts that they talk about is, kind of like who has the power. Like if you're ever going to talk about, bottoms and tops, some people are always like, the bottom is who it doesn't have the power. But, there's this one book called The Bottoming Book where they're saying a woman is like, all right, well, some people believe that, if a person is being penetrated, that the person who's doing the penetrating has the power. I know this just turned left, but she said, think about it. She said, think about it like this. If you think that that's the case all the time, if you have an electric socket and you're putting something in the socket, who has the power?
Hello.
You know what I mean? And so that's where the whole Power is Sex thing took me. It was like, like reclaim your power. You had not even reclaim it, it's claim it. And so it took me in that headspace. I thought it was really dope.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of those pieces. Towards the end of the song, there were a number of things. So she's like, 100 men telling me cover up my areolas. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like we talk about that all the time, like just sort of the ability of men to police women's bodies. Yeah. And so she talks about it. This it's a longer verse. Like I love the entire all of it. But I can't lie. The piece where she kind of ends it off that I love is that she says, "I'm tired of hoteps trying to tell me how to feel for real." And I'm like, and I feel like that resonated. Like that was kind of like, I got to play that again. And I think, again, we talked a little while ago with the other song about how often people see power. People see a powerful woman or see a woman who's coming into a space with strength unapologetically. And it's like, no, that's unacceptable. And so I've seen that play out, people in relationships with people who consider themselves to, to my hotep brothers, whatever. I'm pretty sure ain't none of y'all coming for me anyway, for many reasons. So I'm okay with being like, just tired of that.
Yeah.
And so like I love her being like, I'm tired of them trying to tell me how to feel. And I think that in itself is powerful because it's that control of not only do you feel like you should be able to control whatever else, you feel like you should be able to control how I feel, how I see the world, what bothers me, what doesn't bother me, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And it's like, I'm tired of that. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I love that. This is a part of me that whenever I hear that line, I'm like, preach.
Mm. And I mean, the whole, like, I'm sad that Hotep has turned into what it is, like the word itself, but
Right.
at the same time, everyone knows that dude.
That dude. That dude.
And it's like it's there's so much gaslighting in it where it's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like, oh, my black queen, you know,
Fuck
get your ass
you.
in the kitchen.
Right. Hello.
It's like, it's all just, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, and it's usually screwed in different ways. So it does talk. There's a lot of like sexual innuendos, but it also hits on like the country we live in and the time that we live in.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, because I mean, she talked about everything, like I said, fake booze, fake food, fake news. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it made me think about this documentary. I don't know if I was telling you about, called Dark Money. And if y'all haven't seen that yet,
Yeah.
it's a really good documentary where they talking about our politicians and basically how businesses are buying politicians,
Mm-hmm.
and like all this stuff with Donald Trump, they don't say it outright, but all of this stuff around race and yada yada, that ain't even what this shit's all about. People's literally just trying to, corporations trying to buy the country, and using him to make that fell swoop.
Right.
But we out here getting caught up on all of the bullshit, fake news,
Right.
fake
Fake
booze,
boobs, fake
all
food.
fake food,
What's real?
all of that shit is a smokescreen for what from what we really should be leaning in towards. So yeah, I mean, again, it just goes into why this album is so dope. I mean,
Yeah.
she just hits it on so many levels. I'm pushing this forward.
All right,
Django
let's do it.
Django Jane. Anything?
So much. I mean, I think there's so much of this song that feels
Give
like
me two, man. We got
loving
we got
black
a bunch of
women.
tracks.
I can't give you two. All right. So the end of it, it's not necessarily two, but I'm gonna try to bring it down. So like I don't even know it's the end, but towards the end when um she's like a nigga down dog, nigga move back, take a seat, you are not involved.
Mm.
And she's like, and hit the mute button, let the vagina have the monologue.
Woo.
She's like mansplaining, I fold them like origami. And I'm like, what? And so I think a lot of what I loved about that is again the ability. It's kind of like if you come in a space as a strong black woman, as a strong woman of color, somehow people take that as you're not letting a man be a man, or you're somehow taking away somebody's manhood.
Mhm.
I'm sure we'll have some brothers listening. I'm not apologizing for this, but it kind of feels like if my strength takes away your manhood, that's not about my strength.
Mm.
That's about your manhood. You need to work that out. So I love that line. It felt like, black women stand up, unite. Like, let's do it. Let's do what we're doing. I can do that and love men, love people, love the people around me, and stand and be a black woman and be like, yes, I'm standing here. See me, hear me, all of that.
I was like, that's the nigga we made it song.
Listen.
like nigga, we made it. Like,
she's like, black girl magic, y'all can't stand it. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, she doubles down on it with the next track, Pink.
Yes.
Love for being a woman in all aspects.
Yes. Yeah. Love that too. And I think that may be the one one of the ones she's up for an award for. I feel like I meant to look that up as well. But yes, I love Pink. And again, I feel like a lot of the tracks, and this was one of them, that it feels like I'm saying it and I'm not saying sorry for it.
Yeah. So. Next one, Make Me Feel. Now, so for Make Me Feel, I wrote, the note that I put was, how can I put it? Basically, it's gonna sound weird. Hopefully I could make it not sound weird.
Listen, I got faith in you. Do it.
All right. We can all make her feel this way. And what I meant by that is like, I felt like, again, in this song, she was expressing her sexuality, but it's also a call for others to evoke their sexuality as well. And it's like, I'm this amazing being. You are amazing beings as well. We can, just imagine how amazing this could be together was what I got from that.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like it was interesting, and clearly I'm not in her head, but I can only say what I heard from it. But yeah, at one point when she's like, don't make me spell it out for you. You keep asking me the same questions. It's like for so long, people were questioning, her sexual orientation. Like why that was even anybody's business or topic of conversation. It kind of felt like stop asking me. You know what I mean? Like embrace, she's like an emotional sexual bender. Right. Like stop it. And so yeah, I think I love that. I love that kind of like, why we stuck on that. Embrace who you are, do it, be it. It felt like, express yourself however you choose to express yourself. Whatever sexual orientation you are, do it.
When you said, so you just had me thinking about different. When I was thinking about bender, I wasn't thinking literally like bender. I was thinking like going on a bender. Like
yeah, okay,
like an alcoholic bender, or like intoxicating. Put your caution to the wind. Like that's what I got from that. And that's I didn't even think about it the other way.
Okay, and that's we don't know. We don't know.
No, I think it's dope.
However, it speaks to us.
Yeah, now I gotta listen again, thinking about it that way. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, because I like that she's like, I also love I'm like, it's like I'm powerful with a little bit of tender, and I think that resonates with me because I feel like people will see one or the other often with me. They'll either see based on size, based on complexion, based on how I walk into a room, that powerful piece, and make a lot of assumptions, or they'll see the nice piece and forget where I come from. Like I can do both.
Yeah, as we learned on that last BAP, as soon as we talked about New York.
Yeah, disrespectful.
So
shut that stuff down.
Talking about New York, I got the juice.
Yes, I got the juice. I enjoyed that one. I feel like it felt like it kind of lightened up for me a little bit on that one. It felt like fun. That felt like a fun one to me.
Yeah.
And again, just embracing.
I mean, just the down dog, basically telling motherfuckers just, like it's almost like a mantra song. Like when everybody try to fuck with you, remember, put them in their place.
Yes. I'm the chaser. Don't need a mixer.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Next one of probably my favorite track on the CD is I Like That.
Yeah. So I'll let you go first because I know I'm so excited. I keep jumping in.
I mean, no, it's good. It's good. I mean, it's funny. So everything about this track resonated with me. Like when it first started, I was like, oh, I'm gonna like this track.
Yeah, she starts off with like sometimes a mystery, sometimes I'm free, depending on my mood or my attitude. I'm like, oh,
I'm in.
Sometimes I want to roll or stay at home. That sounds like me.
Yeah, I'm just like, yo, like so everything about the track. And what did I highlight? I ended up highlighting verse 3. It says, I remember when you called me weird. We was in math class on the third row. So yeah, that's, we talked about that several times. Yeah. Like I've lived that, you know what I mean? Like I never forget, I was in middle school, maybe high school. And I had I had begged for Timberland boots, like, growing up on the East Coast, like there was really no way in hell that my parents was going to spend, then $125.
I was an adult when I got my first pair of Timbs.
Listen, so
myself.
I was the baby, and I got a pair. It was the only Christmas gift for like 2 years.
They got that at the outlet. Man, I ain't mad.
You're damn
right.
So, I was already a creative, whatever. But I remember they got scuffed.
Oh no!
And they got scuffed bad. And I was just, and I mean, I had them for a minute. When you don't get shit, you take care of shit forever, right? So this is probably a year into these boots, And I start drawing on them. I start painting on them. I mean, like, I'm going to Heckinger. I'm aging myself. I'm going to Heckinger.
Are they still around? Okay,
nope. Spray painting them. And I remember, like, this chick one day just looked at me with utter disgust and was just like, why you got to be so different?
Oh.
You know? And believe it or not, though, that was a moment. It was a moment in my spirit where I was like, if this shit is making you mad, I'm doing something right.
Listen, right. And again, this is not about me. This is about you. Why do you give a shit that I'm different? And why do you feel the need to bring me, you know what I mean, to ruin my happiness? I like my boots.
Man, and you know, and it was a reminder that my type of people are gonna love these boots. You know what I mean? I mean, like, they went from being suede to patent leather by the time I was done with them. I mean, it was just, you know, and it's bigger than the boots. It's just claiming your identity. It's spitting in the face of normalcy, you know, and this track is all of that for me.
Yeah. And I talked about, like, you know, that sort of last line in that section when, you know, but even back then with the tears in my eyes, I always knew I was a shit. I love that line. It resonates with me. I scream it real loud when I'm driving down. I don't really sing. I scream. In the car, I tearing that line up. But also the chorus, when she's like, and I like that, I don't really give a fuck if I was just the only one who likes that. And I'm like, and it kind of brings back to, like, what you said of, like, being comfortable with who we are, whether anybody else likes it, whether anybody else thinks it's cool. I like that.
Yeah. So on that, I'm gonna skip Don't Judge Me, and
we talked about it. Yeah.
Did you have anything for Stevie's Dream?
Oh, I mean, I loved it. I just loved the idea of it.
Yeah.
Love. Like, that's what I heard. Expressing ourselves through love.
Yeah. All right. And I think we talked a little bit about So Afraid.
We did. All
right. So final track. And like I said, you know, for me, Americans was a bookend. I felt like it was another reflection.
Another favorite
of the first, second track, Crazy Sexy Life. And like what I hit on earlier, I was saying, like, for me, she really hits on this notion that, like, you know, and I've heard this, you know, the truest Americans besides, like, Native Americans is Black folk. Right. You know, like, not only did we build this fucking country, you know, like, our whole fight has been for freedom. To be our true, authentic selves. Like, that's the whole journey of what it means to be an American. And I like, kind of like the genius of this song is it even has a little bit of a twang for me. Like, you know, how to be an American. Like, it plays into that.
It's an anthem.
It's an anthem, you know, but it's like, yo, this anthem is our story, and we deserve the twangy anthem our damn selves because we earned it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's funny because I remember when the current president was running and people were like, oh, you know, if he wins, I'm moving to Canada. And I remember being like, fuck that shit. Like, you know what I mean? People who look just like me literally built this country. Blood, sweat, tears, lives. I ain't going nowhere. And I think that was why another one that I will blast, that I'm like, you know, don't try to take my country. I'll defend my land.
Yeah.
I'm American.
Yep.
And I think, like that, every time she says it, that resonates of like, you don't get to shut me out. And you don't get to shut me out. You don't get to act like this is in my head. Whether it's, and I like that she's not just talking about race. She talks about, you know, wages. She talks about so many things.
Yep.
So love it.
So we ran through the album. I think it's easy to say we loved it. So there was so much to learn. But so what are you leaving with? What did you learn today?
Today I learned to keep living that crazy classic life. Like, I feel like I learned being an outcast that it is okay. The permission to not have to fit in, to be all of the identities that I've talked about, you know, we talk about intersectionality, all of those pieces, each day just striving to like learn more, embrace more of who I am. And I don't have to fit in. Being an outcast it's okay. Live that life.
Yeah.
How about you? What are you taking away?
Taking away, I spoke about it earlier, just kind of like I call it the lemonade effect, where
Okay.
you know, it's like even as a man, you know, if there's a woman, if there's this album that, you know, is quote unquote written from the woman's perspective, like it's written from a person's perspective, like as well.
Right.
And there's a lot to be gained if you can just let go of, oh, that message isn't for me, or oh, that message has a particular lens. Like, you know, there's a lot to pull from it. And if you open yourself up to that as a man, you know, there's just, you know, the same way how like we're comfortable being like mankind and, oh, that's just the way we say it, you know, and it's like, well, you know, if you open up your mind to that, I think, you know, there's a whole lot you could gain from looking at it the other way. And that this sitting through this album, and then knowing that I was going to be talking with you about it, and wondering, you know, what is your experience of it, and melding that with mine, it was great. Like it was a real growth experience for me.
Good, man. Listen, we ain't never too old. Learn and grow.
Right. So with that, please hit us up. You can find me at Ronald McNair on Facebook, and you can find Letha at...
You can find Letha at Letha Mixed Reviews on Facebook.
Nice. And, you know, please leave us feedback. I know that a lot of y'all that love the CD. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you think we were off, if we was on, if we were your spirit animal.
Hello. All of that.
5-star reviews on iTunes. And, you know, you can also check us out. You can send us an email on blackastroniotspodcast@gmail.com.
Yes,
so
indeed.
with that, peace.